Hey there. Hello guys. It is Zilo from the Zilo Tech channel. With the latest task I have posted, it was a login form. A lot of you were confused, and I did promise to create a video on how to do the task. So if I go to my web browser, I already have it opened. So I told you guys to recreate this login form. A lot of people were confused, but now we are going to do it together. Perfect. So what's the first thing I do? I think you've heard it more than 60 times from me. We're gonna first create a folder. What are we gonna name this folder? Login form. Perfect. And I'm gonna hit enter. Now I'm gonna go back to my Visual Studio Code. I am going to close the welcome page. I'm gonna close that a bit, then nope, I'm just gonna go to file, open folder. It's the usual, guys. Now we want to work in our login form folder we have just created right now. So I am going to click that, then I'm going to click select folder, then it should open a new VS Code window. Perfect, that is done. Now at the top there, this is how we create a new file. So I'm just going to close that. So what is the file we are creating? We are creating a login form, login form.html. Then I'm going to hit enter. So you click the plus button to create a new text file here. Now it is generating a new text file. We'll just wait for that to be completed. Perfect. So that is done. What I do next is I am going to hold down Shift and press 1 to get the exclamation mark. This will automatically generate the boilerplate or the template of my HTML document. So it's going to generate the basic structure of any website. I'm going to hit enter, and boom, it does generate the structure for me. Easy. So the first thing I'm going to do, which I usually don't do in my other videos, is change the title immediately. So my title is going to be login. That is all. Login. Perfect. Now I like to keep my website open so I see what I am working with. So I'm going to go to login form. I am going to click the login form I have just created on my Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open that. Perfect. There's nothing wrong. The problem is we have not added any content yet. So this is our reference. This is what we want to achieve. And now what we're going to do is we are going to go back to our Visual Studio Code. Then in here, the first tag we open is called a font tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to open something called a form tag. You guys are unfamiliar with forms, but that's what we're doing today. That is how we are able to achieve this. So I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio Code. Then I'm going to type form. Then I'm going to hit enter. Perfect. So that is not needed. So in here, in between my form, I'm just going to hit enter to go to work in between. The first thing we need to do is we need to use a div. Div stands for division. This creates a container to contain our code, to contain blocks of code. I will show you in a second what it does. So I'm going to use a div tag. Then I'm going to hit enter. Now here just above the div tag, I'm going to use my h1 tag, and in here I'm going to say Zilo log login form. Control S to save. If I go back to my website and I refresh, I can see Zillow login form. Let me just add some space. Perfect. So we are getting somewhere. We are definitely getting somewhere. So what is the next thing we have? If we go back to reference, we can see that there's text saying Zillow Tech login form. Then below that we have username and the text box. Then we have password and the text box. We have a checkbox with remember me and a submit button. Perfect. So the first thing we need to do is, I just realized I've made a mistake. We need to cut this and put it in the div. Perfect. So now what am I going to type? To achieve this username, we use what we call a label tag. It is called a label. It is called a label. In this video, if I did not mention, we are going to do some CSS, but that will come in later. So we're going to use a label tag and we're going to type username. Perfect. Then we're going to hit the colon. So if I go back to my website and I refresh, I can see username. Username is on my web page just below Zillow login form. Let me just make it Zillow Tech. That's full name. Perfect. We are getting somewhere. So here, so now we have our label. What we need to do now is create a text box. You see this text box that spans from there to there. We also need to recreate that. How do we do that? We use something called an input tag. And now our input, for the type, we are going to leave it as text, because your username is a text, your name is a text, your surname is a text. So we are going to leave the type as text. Perfect. So if I Control S to save and I go back to my web page and I refresh, I can now see that a text box appears next to my username label. Perfect. So I'm going to go back to my code and I'm going to do the same for my password. So I'm going to type label, hit enter. I'm going to remove the 4, it's not needed right now. Then here I'm going to type password. Perfect. Now below the password we're going to repeat. So we're going to type input, going to hit enter. And for the type, it is a password. So we're going to type password. The type is a password. Control S to save. If I go back to my web page and I refresh, oh, okay, there's an issue. Username, text box, password, text box appear next to each other. We want them below. How do we do that? We are going to go back to the code. We're going to use the BR tag. BR. I'm going to use it twice to add space 2 times. Control S to save. Go back to my web page and I refresh. Now that is looking so much better. So I'm going to go back to my code. I'm going to add my colon like I did with the username. Now let me go and reference back. So we have our username and password. We have a username and password here too. What is next? So let me just, I don't know if I can highlight. Unfortunately I cannot. So we have done this one, we have done this one, and we have done this one. Now we need to do the remember me. How do we do that? We're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to put BR to add space twice. BR, and I'm going to hit enter. Then below there I am going to type input, Now for the type, it's going to be a checkbox because that is what it is. So I'm gonna refresh. I'm gonna go back to my website and I'm gonna refresh, and now we can see a checkbox appears on the left hand side. By the way, for the password, because we put type here, because we made the type password, look at what it does for us automatically. So if I type this, it makes it bullet point. So it makes it like bullets, so you cannot see the actual password unless you click the view or unhide. See? Type is very important. If there's no type, it will not work. So that's the same thing for the checkbox. Then I'm going to add the label below. Label. I'm going to remove the 4. What was it? Remember. Remember me. Perfect. Control S to save. Go back to my web page and I refresh. Now I can see remember appears next to the checkbox. Perfect. Now if we go back, we can see our login form does not quite look the same as this one. This one has the submit button, which I forgot about. Then the borders around, and there's some shadow there. So what we need to do first is add the submit button. Submit button, to achieve that, we do the same thing. So I'm gonna type BR again. Perfect. Then sorry, my bad. BR again. Then below I'm going to type input. In that input, our type has changed. The type is now going to be submit. Control S to save. If I refresh my page, I can see now a button is created for me for submit. Perfect. Now we need to do some functionality. So if we go back to our reference, if I click the submit button, look what happens. It tells me please fill out this field. If I maybe fill out this field and I don't fill out password, what does it say? It's gonna tell me the same thing. If I maybe fill it out and I click that, it is going to tell me to check the box. We also need to add that functionality. How do we do that? We're gonna go back to our code. This one is very simple. The only thing we do is we add something called required. That is literally all we do. So let me just show you in comparison. So if we go back to our web page and we click submit, do you see that nothing happens? But if we add the required, now see what happens. Control S to save. Here too, required. Perfect. And for remember me, we are going to also do the same thing. We're going to put required. Control S to save. So if I go back to my web page and I refresh, so if I click submit, look what happens. Automatically tells me please fill out this field. Maybe if I fill out the field, okay, perfect, and I click submit, it's gonna tell me to do the same there. If I click submit, it's gonna tell me please check this box if you want to proceed. If I check it, nothing should happen because we've not added any JavaScript. But look there, now it works. So to add some basic JavaScript functionality, we use the required attribute. The required attribute. It is very powerful, as you can see. It did a lot for us. Perfect. So now let us compare ours to the reference. We can see that this one appears we can see that this one appears in the center of the web page while ours is on the left. How do we center? We are going to use the center tag. So I am going to center the whole form. How do I do that? I'm going to type center. hit enter. I'm going to cut this, then I'm going to go right to the bottom, then below form I am going to put center. Perfect. So I'm going to center from top to bottom. Control S to save. That did not save. Oh. Control S to save. If I go back to my web page and I refresh, now I can see this appears on the center of my web page. Perfect. Now we are almost done. We can see that it appears in the center. We have almost all components. We have the text fields, we have the labels, we have the check boxes, and we have the submit button and our H1. What we need to do next is add this red border around my form. Unfortunately, you cannot achieve that with HTML, so we are going to use CSS. Perfect. So what we're going to do is in our body, I'm going to type style, then I'm going to hit enter. The style tag is used to put our inline CSS work. The style tag is to put our inline CSS. Perfect. So now remember what I said about the div tags. The div tags create a simple container for our code. So now if we want to target this specific div, we are going to give it a class name. So class is equals to what class name can we give? This is a login form. I'm thinking, okay, I can just say login container. Login container. Perfect. So now we have given it a class name, so we know that from this div all the way to the bottom here, it is contained in that one div called login container. We know that is in that it is all in a container named login container. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put dot so we can target that specific one. So I'm going to put dot to login container. Perfect. And I'm going to put my curly braces. You find the curly braces just next to the letter P on your keyboard, or next to the square brackets. Perfect. So now we are targeting this div. We are only targeting this div. What we're going to do is, I think the first thing we're going to do is to add the border. This is annoying. So to add the border, we're going to type border. Then we're going to put a colon, or it does that automatically for us. Then in the border, we're going to type 50px. This is for the thickness of the border. We're going to make it solid so that we can see it. And I am going to make it, in this case, my favorite color, yellow. Perfect. Then what we need to do next is I'm going to Control S to save and see that the changes have been made. So I'm going to refresh and I can see that there's a border on my login form, but the problem is it is extremely wide. That is not a problem. At least we know that our CSS is actually working, and that is a good thing. So I'm gonna go back. So the next thing I'm going to add is my max width to fix that issue. So max width, I'm going to use 300 px. Perfect. So if I save and I go back to my web page and I refresh, I can see that my max width has fixed the issue of it expanding everywhere. So that is fixed, but it's a bit too cramped up. To fix that, we're going to use what we call padding. But now I can see my login form is a bit too close to the top of my web page, and I want it to be like, you see there's space there, but there's no space there. How do we fix that? We're going to use something called margin. Margin. For my margin, I'm going to put 40px, and I'm going to make it auto. Perfect. Control S to save, and if I refresh, I can see now that there is space from the top to my actual login form. So I think I'm going to make this one a bit more solid. Let us try 8. Control S to save. Control S to save. I go back here. Oh, not here, sorry, my bad. And I refresh. My login form border is a bit thicker now. I like that. So I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio Code. Then now, what do we want to do? We spoke about the padding. We need to fix the padding because our border is almost touching the text. So we need to add some basic padding. So I'm going to type padding. This is to target padding all around. And I'm going to make it maybe 70px. 70px, it's not quite exactly the same as this one, so I might decrease a bit. Maybe I'll put 50. Perfect. Then I'm going to go back to my web page. I save, I go back here, and I refresh. That is not bad. That is okay. But if you want to target padding for a specific area, maybe you want to target the padding going down, or the padding going right, or the padding going left, or the padding going on top. This is how we do that. So I'm going to go back to my code. I'm going to say padding dash maybe bottom, because I said I want to target the padding here. I want to target the padding here. I want to put more space between the submit button and the border. So here, maybe I'm going to use 40px. Let us see what difference that makes. I'm going to refresh. Yeah, it did not work. Let us make it bigger. Maybe I'm going to put 80 or 70. Control S to save. I go back to my web page and I refresh. Yeah, you can see that there is a bit more space. We can make more so that you see the difference. So I'm going to put 90. Control S to save. Go back to my web page and I refresh. Then you can see that there is more space between the submit and the border. Perfect. Now what is remaining? I think the shadow. Yes. So this one has a nice shadow that makes it pop. It looks like the login form is popping from the web page. We can also achieve that. That is very easy. So you can leave yours as is, but if you want to add the shadow, no problem. So to add the shadow, we use something called box shadow. So I'm going to type box dash shadow. Here, this one is very complicated. Just follow as I do. I'm going to type 0, 0, then 30 for the thickness of the shadow. Now for my custom color, I'm going to type RGBA, then brackets, Now I'm going to put 0, so I'm going to have 4. 0, 0, 0, comma. Here I'm going to put 1. Control S to save. If I go back to my web page and I refresh, there is some shadow appearing on my login form. Perfect. Let me just increase this and see what happens. Now the shadow is more thick, just like I said it would. Perfect. So it looks like my login form is popping. I don't know, in my opinion the yellow one is better because yellow is a better color. But yes, if you can see the Zillow Tech login form, the H1 is bigger than this one because they use an H2 tag, but that's not a problem. Sometimes they say bigger is better, so we're gonna leave it as it is. See, if you hover, it even tells you please fill out this field. Perfect. This is very nice actually. One thing I need to show you guys, or another thing else I need to show you guys, is linking. How to do external CSS. This is what we call internal CSS. The CSS is in our HTML file, but we can do something called external. So we can work on a separate CSS file. So let me show you that quickly. So in the next video, I do not do internal. So I'm going to click the plus button again. I'm going to name this file style.css. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. So what we need to do to link our CSS to the HTML is this. Go up. So I'm putting this in my header on purpose. So what we need to do is we need to type link. Then do you see rel equals to style sheet. Then href to locate the folder, the file, sorry, my bad, to locate the file. In this case, the name of our file is style.css. So that's what we're going to type there. Style.css. Perfect. Then I'm going to hit enter. Great. So if I remove the style tag, if I remove everything here, cut that. So if I remove everything here, Control S to save. If I go back to my web page, guys, I'm just testing. You do not have to do what I'm doing now. I'll show you what to do in a second. If I refresh and I remove my CSS, look what happens. My login form is as ordinary as ever. There's no styling, there's no beautifying, nothing. Now let me show you guys the power of CSS. So I told you we're no more doing inline, we are doing external. We're creating a separate CSS file. Let me remove these errors because it's a bit annoying. Where is it? Quick fix. Disable. Okay, perfect. So if I go back to my CSS and by the way, I cut the code from that side and I paste it here. Let me just fix my indentation. Perfect. That also needs to be more on that side. This side. Perfect. So now that I have linked my CSS successfully, if I save both of the files and I go back to my web page and I refresh, it should appear as normal. So you can have your HTML and your CSS files separately, but they are linked together. Let me show you something. If I accidentally put the wrong name, maybe styles instead of style, Control S to save, and I go back to my web page and I refresh, the CSS is not linked. So our thing goes back to a plain HTML file. So it's important that you have the name exactly as it is, or it will not work. So I'm going to delete the S from styles. I'm going to click Control S to save. If I go back to my web page and I refresh, we should have it working. Perfect. One more thing with CSS we can do is maybe change the color of our background. How do we do that? So I'm just gonna go above the login form container. I'm going to type body. I'm gonna open those braces. Perfect. So I'm gonna type background color. I'm gonna make it maybe black. Control S to save. If I go back to my web page and I refresh, I can see that my background color has changed to black. Now it's unfortunate that these ones are also black, so we can actually fix that. So how do we do that? Since everything is wrapped in this div class called login container, we can target everything in that container. So here, instead of so I'm gonna say maybe let's try font color. No, but font color won't work. Let's try color. I'm gonna put white. What is this color? It looks okay. I'm gonna refresh. Now that you see that we have targeted all the elements in that container, we have targeted all the elements in that container because we wrapped everything in a div. We wrapped everything in a div called login container. Perfect. This is how you do clean and efficient code. So if I go back to my thing, I see everything looks good. If I refresh, I made it white. There is no difference. Don't even know the difference between the two. Perfect. We can even change it to red. Control S to save. Nope. Bad. Control S to save. If I go back and I refresh, everything turns to red. Let me see, I've never done this before. The box shadow. I don't know. Let me try this one, red. So I'm going to use the color picker because I do not know the color codes of head. So if I go back and I refresh, I can see that my shadow has turned to red. That is awesome. Let me just let me play with the colors. Maybe make it blue. I think blue would look very nice. Control S to save. If I go back and I refresh, my background, my shadow, has turned to blue, a glowing blue. Perfect. I do not like the red, so let me change that. Let me see, what are the options? Let me see, what are the options? Oh, I think I'll just stay, let me see, cyan. Not bad, but I think I'll stick to plain, so plain white. Control S to save, refresh. Perfect. We even did more than we are supposed to do, and that looks exceptionally good. In the next video, we are going to do more tasks regarding CSS. Thank you guys. See you guys in another video. God bless and stay safe.